Hi and welcome to another video tutorial. In this tutorial video, what I'm going to do is show you how to convert a truth table into a Boolean expression using a method sometimes known as the sum of products. So first of all, I'm going to go through the general method. And what we have to do first to apply the sum of products method is to highlight all of the rows in our truth table where the output column contains a 1. Secondly, we've got to go through these rows and write a Boolean expression of all of the inputs ANDed together. And if the input is a 0, invert it or not it. And then lastly, we've got to join all of these smaller Boolean expressions we've just come up with OR operators. Okay, so now I'm going to go through an example with this truth table over here. So first of all, what we've got to do is highlight all of the rows where the output is 1. Okay, so I've highlighted all of the rows where the output is 1. Now what we've got to do is look at each of these rows, and I'm going to do the first one, and see firstly what our inputs are. So we've got a 0 and a 0, and then write down our inputs, so A and B, and if the input is a 0, not it, so we're going to do not A and not B because they're both zeros, and AND them together. And just a quick note on the notation I'm using. If I want to not something, I'm going to write it like that, so that's A and not A. If I want to AND two things together, I'm going to write it like this, that will be A and B. And if I want to OR two things together, I'm going to write it like this, so A or B with a plus in the middle. Okay, so our second row here then, we've got a 0 for the A, so we're going to write down the A and not it. And then we're going to AND not A with B because the B is a 1. So our Boolean expression for that row is going to be not A and a B. For this row, it's going to be the same, but the not is going to be on the B instead of the A. So we're going to have A and not B. Okay, so hopefully that's quite straightforward. All we have to do now is write down x equals, and then join these together with OR operators, and that's going to give us our final expression. So I write down my first Boolean expression from the first row of the truth table where the output is 1, and that was not A and not B. Then I write down OR, and then the second expression, not A and B, and then write down OR again, A and not B, which was our last expression. And that is how we convert a truth table to a Boolean expression. And you might notice that this expression can be simplified, and there's a number of ways we can do that. One of them you might have looked at Boolean algebra, and there's also another way as well that I'm going to be doing videos on as well. So if you want to learn how to simplify these expressions, then we'll go and watch those videos. Okay, so moving on now to a slightly more complex example. We've got a truth table here with 3 inputs. I'm just going to apply the same general method to this truth table. It's exactly the same method, except we've just got 3 inputs. So first of all, I've got to highlight all of the rows where the output is 1. And now looking at our rows, I can see my first row where the output is 1, all of the inputs are 0. So that means we've got to write out our inputs, ANDed together, and then invert all of them. So not all of them. So we've got not A and not B and not C. Looking at the second row then, I can see that my A is a 0, so we're going to have not A there. ANDed with B and C because these two are 1s. So AND B and C. My third row then that I've got to look at is A and B are 1s, so they're just going to be, that's just going to be A and B. ANDed with not C because our not C is our C input is a 0. Lastly then, we've got a row where all of the inputs are 1. So in this case, we're just going to write A and B and C, and we don't need to invert any of them because none of them are zeros. So then what we do to get our final Boolean expression, which represents the entire truth table, is say x equals, and then all of these expressions together. So what we do is we go not A and not B and not C, which is our first expression, or not A and B and C, or A and B and not C, or A and B and C. And that gives us our final Boolean expression to represent that truth table. And you'll notice that that one can also be simplified to some extent, and I'll show you how to do that in other tutorial videos. But the purposes of this video was just to show you how you can convert a truth table into a correct Boolean expression, albeit not in not a minimal form of that expression. Okay, so I hope you found this tutorial useful, and thanks for watching.